Hello again. This time we're going to try to move, copy, and delete files. The first thing that I would like us to do is to go back into that example reads directory that we played around with last time. And if you forget where that is, you can just do an ls in your home directory and you should be able to see it up here. If not, make sure you do go and download that. So I'm going to go ahead and do cd space ex, and I'm autocompleting again. So we're using our old friend autocomplete from last time. I'm hoping you're familiar with that. You're going to use the tab key and it should fill out the rest for you. And then I'm just hitting enter. And when we're inside, we can go ahead and just do another ls. And we should see these read files. So they're .fastq.gz. These are fastq files, and we've got the reverse here denoted by the R1. We've got the forward here denoted by the R1, and we have the reverse denoted by the R2. So we've got these paired reads right here. All right, so the first thing I'm actually going to try doing is creating a new directory. It's going to be empty by default. We can use the mkdir command for this. So you're going to give it the name of the directory you would like to create. I'm going to go ahead and just call this the test_directory. Notice how again I'm using that underscore, and that's to delimit these two words, because if I used a space, well, that's going to make it two separate arguments when in fact I want this to be one directory. And if I can't use a space, the underscore, well, if you squint your eyes, it's almost like it doesn't exist. So you can kind of get the picture. This is supposed to be like two words for this directory. So get in the habit of using an underscore for that kind of purpose. Anyway, I'm hitting enter, and no news is good news, so it should have finished without complaint. And I'm going to use an ls to confirm that it did in fact get created, and as we can see, test directory exists. Now, why don't we get rid of it? That's right. As soon as we bring it into existence, we just get rid of it. I'm pretty fickle. All right, so rmdir. That's what we're going to have to use. It's short for remove directory. And we give a space for this, and then I'm going to fill it in with autocomplete, and then that should get rid of it. And we can use an ls to confirm, and it's gone. Great. But we actually need another one for this next part. So sorry, we're going to have to create a second directory. So I'm going to go ahead and type in mkdir. I'm going to call this one another directory. And then I'm hitting enter. And I'll just go ahead and throw in an ls there. Great, it exists. And like last time, it's going to be empty. All right, for this next part, we're going to try copying a file. Why don't we go ahead and copy one of these sets of reads? So I'm going to start with a cp space ac, and I'm auto-completing. And I have two choices here because it's either going to be R1 or R2. That's where they begin to differ. So I'm going to start with the forward reads. So I'm going to add a 1 here and hit a tab. And that should be completed. Next, you're going to give it the location for where you would like to put the file, or you have the option of just creating the file in this same location by giving it a different name, and then it's going to be that name as the copy. You can also use relative file paths. So let's say I want to copy this and put it up a level. I could use copy space that file space ... And what that is saying is copy this file and with that same name, put it up one level. So I'm in example reads right now, so this would actually be putting it in my home directory. And in fact, I could have also used tilde right here. And this is where it begins to really shine, because no matter where you are, you could have very quickly have copied that file and then put it in your home directory. So as you can see, this is beginning to be pretty useful. You can also use a period right here instead, and if you can remember, that's going to be standing for your working directory. And you might think, well, what's the purpose of this? Because you're just making the same copy, put it in the same directory. Well, this becomes useful when you're trying to copy from a different location. So if you're trying to copy a file that's not located where you currently are, but somewhere else, let's say like in someone else's home directory, well then you can very quickly say put it where I am currently by just, oh, see what I did there? I skipped ahead, sorry. This little thing right here. So if you go around and you want to go back to edit something, you don't always have to just use your arrow keys. You have a couple of ways of doing this. You can use Control E and A to go to the beginning and end of it. So Control A gets you to the beginning of the line, Control E gets you to the end. So these are like little shortcuts that you can use sometimes to move around. But anyway, what I was just trying to say is that if you were copying from somewhere else, like from the home, you can just use the dot as a shortcut. It saves you some extra typing. But anyway, what I just want to do right now is make a copy, put it in the same folder I'm in, and just give it a different name. So for that, I'm going to choose to call it forward.fastq.gz. Not very creative, but we get the gist. Notice how I'm still using these extensions. You don't necessarily need them. So if I were to just use forward, it would create a copy of this and call it forward and put it in my working directory, which happens to be example reads right now. However, there are a couple of reasons why you do want to use extensions. The first is that sometimes programs will read them and they're not going to like it if you give them the wrong extension names. The second is that they're very useful because they help you know what the files are. If I have a .fastq, I know this is a fastq file, so I don't have to go inside of there and check. And with a .gz, I know this is compressed. There are certain commands you really don't want to use on a compressed file, so it can be useful to make sure you know what it is. So just get into the habit of making sure you retain these extensions. You don't need to use them, but I would suggest that you do. Anyway, you can go ahead and just hit enter now, and this should create a new copy of this forward read and call it forward.fastq.gz. And we can use an ls to confirm, and you can see right over here, it did get created. All right, let's say I really don't like that, like, whatever, I don't like forward. Well, you can use the rm command to remove a file. So we can use this to remove forward.fastq.gz, and that's what I'm doing as I'm just auto-completing. A word of warning though, when you remove it, it's gone. There's no recycling bin here. And what's more is it can be very difficult to recover these kinds of files after you've removed them. So make sure you have a backup somewhere if this is a very important file. In this case, I just created a copy, so I don't really care that I'm removing this thing. And I'm hitting enter. No news is good news, using ls, and it's gone. Great. Okay, now let's make a second copy, this time of the reverse. So I'm going to go through the motions again. Should be able to follow on now. Autocomplete, R2, this time. And I guess I will call it reverse.fastq.gz. And I'll go ahead and throw in another, actually I'm going to clear this, kind of like wipe the slate clean so we can get a better view. Then I'm using ls. All right, there it is. So we've made another copy. What if we want to put it somewhere? Like what if we want to put it in that empty directory over here? Well, we can use mv space. Oh, sorry, I even forgot to mention what that is. mv stands for move. So it takes two arguments. The first argument is going to be the file that you would like to move. The second is going to be the location of where you would like to put it. So I am going to give it as the first argument that reverse.fastq.gz. As the second argument, I am going to give it that another directory. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I also did a quick LSC. It's like reflexive for me by now, and it should be for you eventually, just to see that it's gone. And now I'm going to go ahead and just CD into that another directory to confirm that it's in there. Yep, it is. I'm going to also CD back out. So these should be pretty, it should come by you naturally by now. So I just went in, I checked with an ls. I could have alternatively just done an ls on that directory to see what's in there, but I just kind of wanted to see if you remembered how to change into this and back out again. And I'll just do another ls because why not? Okay, what if I want to make a copy of a directory? Well, as it stands, copy only copies one file, so we're going to have to give it something extra. In this case, it's going to be copy space -r. The option we are setting here is recursive, so it's going to recursively copy the contents of a directory, and then you're going to put it somewhere else. And otherwise, it's going to behave just like the copy command we just used several times. So why don't we go ahead and give it that another directory. And then I'm just going to call it yet another directory. And so it's making a copy of this directory, and it's going to call it yet another directory, and it should appear in my current working directory, which happens to be example reads. And then I can do ls. And there it is. We can also confirm that the contents of it are identical. We can use ls again and autocomplete on that yet another directory. And then we can hit enter. And we can see it also contains the exact copy of that reverse.fastq.gz. Okay, let's get rid of this now. I'm going to clear the screen again. And I'm going to do another ls. All right, what if we were to use this again, the rmdir coupled with this to remove it? Well, this time it's going to say fail to remove. We're actually getting an error. It's complaining. It's because the directory is not empty. You might be wondering, why the heck would I ever want to use this then? Because most of the times directories aren't empty. Well, rmdir can be useful in that sometimes you just want to remove superfluous directories that are now empty that you don't need anymore. So you could recursively go in and just get rid of these empty directories. You know, you can kind of like do some housekeeping. So there are uses for this thing. But in this case, we've got something in there, and this isn't our solution. So what I'm going to use instead is rm again, but this time I'm using -rf. I'm modifying it with two options. Because you see, when you use a dash here, if these are single character options, you can string them together in any order you would like after that dash. So the first R is going to stand for that recursive option, just like the copy one, so it should behave similarly. In this case, it's recursively going into that folder, deleting its contents, and if you've got another directory in there, it's going to go in there and delete it, etc. And that's also why you should be very careful for this, because it's going to delete a lot of stuff. And heaven forbid you do something like delete your home directory. So be very careful, make sure you know what you're doing before you hit enter with something like this. The second option right here is F. It stands for force. Sometimes it's going, when you try to remove something, it's going to ask, well, oh, this is write protected. Do you want to remove it? Yes or no? If you have a bunch of stuff in there, well, you'd have to say yes to a bazillion things. So if you kind of want to get around with that, like waive all your rights, then just use an F to force it to delete it no matter what. So what this is going to do is recursively delete it and just not worry about yes or no's. So then finally I'm going to give it the thing I would like to delete. It's this directory right here, yet another directory. So I will go ahead and remove it. Just like that. And we can use an ls to confirm that, yes, it was removed. Great. Well, now you know how to make new directories, how to remove empty directories, how to copy files, including directories, and also how to remove them. So hopefully this was a useful tutorial for you, and we'll talk about more next time.